Pull out the egg basket. You unhook the hook and push it down.
So one of the main things we're doing when doing this channel is to kind of show others what we're doing and kind of the trials and tribulations of it. Some of the mistakes that we are making, and hopefully we can try and fix them. But one of the other big reasons that we're doing this channel is to be able to get that feedback from the community. So those of you who are watching, if you've got ideas and suggestions, please feel free to. You're not going to hurt my feelings. We're too new to this, and we're just trying things out. So if you've got ideas, suggestions, questions, please hit them up in the comments below, because we want to learn just as much as anything else. We're doing this to hopefully help others and inspire others to do what we have done, because we have followed in the footsteps of a lot of folks like Lumna Acres, like Arms Family Homestead, like SSL Family Dad. I mean, there's so many, and we're going to do a tribute video at some point to everybody who's inspired us and helped us through their media. So we hope that maybe somebody out there can relate to us and our situation. So that would be awesome. But we're also doing is a bit of a legacy thing, so that someday we'll be able to look back and I'll be able to remember the day when I'm holding Emilia in my arms quite easily, because I'm not so sure. That's obviously not going to happen forever. And that's just a little piece of aluminum fencing that I tied onto another fencing staple, holding it in over there. So we use fencing staples for a lot of different things. There are a lot of different plans and a lot of places out there that call for little eye hooks or screw-in eye hooks or things like that. And I use fencing staples for most of that for a couple reasons. One, anybody who's ever tried to remove a fencing staple knows how hard that is to do, particularly those big long ones, those 1.5 inch, 1 3/4 long ones. So if you get one that's 1 inch or longer and it's barbed, fencing staples are fantastic for using to secure things. I will put a hook, I will bang one of those into something, put a carabiner on it, hang anything you want from it. It's going to be very, very strong. I use it all the time for latches, to open to hold our shed doors and shop doors open. Fencing staples on the door, and then fencing staples on the side of the building, wrap them around, bungee cord, keeps them from flopping around in the wind. So it's a really, really cheap way, because to get those little eye hooks, I mean, they're not very expensive, but they are maybe 5, 10, 15 cents a piece, or you get a big giant tub of fencing staples for a couple bucks, and you can't beat that. And they are incredibly tough and very hard to remove. Anybody who's tried to remove fencing knows what I'm talking about. So pretty much everything is according to the Justin Rhodes plan for this tractor. The thing is about how we sourced everything is that we only had to buy the hardware cloth. Everything else was either we got free from somebody, or somebody gave it to us, or we scrounged for it, or whatever. But this is really the only cost that we had, and we bought a larger roll than it calls for in the plans. Ultimately, we got about 50 bucks worth of hardware cloth, because I seem to be using it fairly frequently on a bunch of different projects. So that's about the only thing that we have that is money into this, and maybe a box of the wire staples. Everything else, the lumber, everything else was repurposed or given to us in some kind of way. This is it's just a pallet board that I had from an extra pallet lying around. These are 2 pieces when we did a closet remodel, and this is the old piece of the old shelving. I just ripped them down and made a couple little blocks so it'll sit nice and firm on here. A couple little nails on either side so it doesn't slide out when we're moving it. But you take it out, and then you can use it to prop up the bigger half, or the big lid, if we need to open it up, which I'm hoping not to do very often. So same deal here. Little carabiner, little fencing, and there's our little door. Again, right now, this is designed for chickens with the perches and everything, but right now it's a great home for the ducks. And you'll see we have, you see you have, it's an old closet rod right there. because the plans call for the square, the 2x2, using part of your lumber for the perches, and that's great. But I had a piece of closet rod lying around. It's like, why not try and use that? So we had an interesting event the other day. You can see that duck that's laying down over in the corner over there. He's got one eye swollen shut, and there's another one that got injured, but we had a hawk attack on our ducks that were sitting out. They weren't inside the tractor, they were just out in the field, and we have a lot of hawks in our area, and that one back over there got the worst of it, and his head was the main attack spot. So right now he's got that one eye that's completely swollen shut, and the other one doesn't look real open either, but he's doing much better. This was 2 days ago, and now he's up and walking around and eating, and you can see that one right there, he's still pretty injured, but we sure are glad that he pulled through. Well, these hawks had been circling around and then actually made the attack, and several of them had pushed themselves through and under the electric fence while on, and obviously they were pretty shaken and pretty hurt, and there were two of our 4 ducks that got wounded. There were hawks sitting in that tree right there, and we're talking big ones. The one I saw fly away was definitely a big hawk. I mean, it was a red-tailed hawk. There was another one that was about the same size, maybe a little bit smaller, but I couldn't tell if it was another red-tailed hawk or a red-shouldered hawk or some other different type of thing. While they were down here at this level, there were 2 more smaller ones that were circling ahead, and those 4 hawks circled and screeched and just basically patrolled this neighborhood for the rest of the day and all day yesterday. I've heard them a little bit today, and we hear them all the time. But now it takes on a whole new meaning when we're trying to keep our animals safe. And this was our fault completely by seeing and knowing that these guys are in the area and kind of putting them out anyway and saying, well, they'll be fine. And well, they weren't. That was our fault. And I'm really thankful and blessed that they're both pulling through. And it makes us really double down our security efforts of what we're going to do and how we're going to help our chicks once they come outside. And with these predators in the area, and our neighbor just down the way, I can't see her house from here, but just down the way, she's lost a lot of chickens this year to hawks. And we've been trying to help her avoid the hawk kills, but it's been tough. I mean, it's killed a couple of her roosters and hens, and now we've had duck attacks. Okay, so our top is basically, it's plexiglass. It's Lexan, I believe, is the official formula for it. And right now it's got this blue protective film on both sides, both the inside and the outside. And of course it's clear. I don't know how well that's going to work out in the summer, whether that's going to be too much of a greenhouse effect and make things just too hot. I just don't know, but we'll see. We're going to try this, and this was something that was going to be thrown out from another company. They had a couple sheets of these things and they threw them out, or were going to throw them out, but my father-in-law grabbed them and marked them for us, and we picked them up, and boy, they're being put to good use. It works very well and didn't cost us a thing. So these are little very thin, I'm not sure the exact dimensions, but pretty thin plywood. Nothing real robust, but big but enough that it can do the job. So these little wheels I put on here, and I drilled them through that bottom frame piece, 2x2 frame piece on here, just with it's got a standard axle. What these came off of is an old barbecue grill that we had, and the grill is since rusted out and gone, but I kept these wheels just thinking that maybe I'll use them. So on the other end of this little small pole axle is a little cotter pin holding it in, and it really makes it easy to move around. It does make a little bit of a gap underneath. It's probably about an inch and a half. So ultimately we may not use this setup if this tractor is outside of a fence line. But as it is right now, it's inside of our electric fence, and this is just fine. Here's definitely something I would change, and I didn't notice it as I was putting it together originally, but these posts right here are 24 inches, these posts, and so is the hardware cloth. That's 24 inches. So what happens is that now this fits inside of here. So you're supposed to be able to staple this to the bottom, but if I do that, I leave this big gap. If I take it up here, I leave a gap at the bottom. So the plans actually call for cutting a bunch of pieces like this, which I don't really want to do it that way, but I kind of have to. happen. Maybe I'm missing something on the instructions. That's very possible. But for me, I would have left it like this is and made these posts 23 inches. That extra inch means that now you could staple this thing both on the top and the bottom, and you wouldn't have to do as much cutting with the hardware cloth, which to me is kind of a pain.
There are a variety of reasons of why we messed up, and all of them come back to this guy right here.
So here's our chicken/duck tractor.